Dear God, today as this session opens, we pray that your presence will be before us and everyone who serves in the decision-making process of our city. We pray for direction which will lead our city to be strong and unified. May we continue the legacy of our founders. May we be granted this day the wisdom to make decisions which will be for the good of our city. We also pray for your special blessing on all those who are working to transform our city and make it a better place to live and work. Amen. Will you please honor our nation's flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Council Nguyen.
Here.
Council Elliott.
Here.
Council Kennedy.
Here.
Council Leahy.
Here.
Council Laurie.
Here.
Council Martin.
Here.
Council Mendonça.
Here.
Council Mercia.
Here.
Mayor Murphy.
Here.
9 present.
First, we have unfinished business, continued from February 5th, 2013. First motion by Councilman Mendonça, request the city manager identify a park location where a cricket field could be established. Seconded by Council Laurie. Council Mendonça.
Yes, Councilor Noon and Councilor Mercer and I were at a flag raising for India. It was at the end of, last Saturday in January. And one of the speakers who spoke was an official in a cricket league and said that it's the second most popular sport in the world. Yes. But that other communities have the league, and there are certainly people who live in Lowell that participate in it. And I know I've seen them out at Regatta Field along the boulevard, and they set up a temporary field and practice there, if not play. So one of the requests they made was that that we try to find a place where they could play within Lowell and be able to create a permanent pitch, is what they said. I assume it really wouldn't cost the city that much, that we could probably work with the group, that if we just tell them where it could be, they could probably do the work to create the pitch and have the field where they could play. So it's on at their request that I'm making this motion.
Thank you. Mr. Manager?
The only issue that we have, Councilor, and we've got a report already working on this, but the only issue is a true cricket field is, I'm learning all about this, it has to be a particular size, and most of our fields are not big enough. Regatta happens to be one, but we're looking at all the other fields to see if there's, in kind of looking outside the box to see if there's something, but we will get a report on this.
Yeah, I know it'd certainly be a challenge. I know the challenges we had in just creating more soccer fields to meet the demand, and so I'm sure that if there's space out there to utilize, whether it's softball or football or soccer, but I just thought I'd put the motion and make the request and see if there's any space out there that they might be able to use. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this motion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Next motion by Councilman Mendonça. Request the manager provide an update of the transition to the new residential reserved parking program. Seconded by Council Laurie. Council Mendonça.
Yes, in December they rolled out the new program, and everyone was supposed to turn in their old signs to get the new ones. And one of the intents with this new ordinance was that we felt there were a lot of them out there that are really not being utilized anymore, and by having the annual renewal, it would cut down on that. So I just thought I'd put the motion on to maybe get an update on that, to figure out how many people have signed up for them and how that compared to how many we thought were in existence prior to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this motion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Next motion by Council Leahy. Request the city manager have proper department present a plan to rejuvenate city council chambers in the month of July, including painting walls, replacing shades, and sanding wood floors. Seconded by Council Laurie. Council Leahy.
Thank you, Your Honor. The motion basically speaks for itself, but if there's any way we could, just looking at the schedule, I think July is the best time to do this. And if there were money available for this year, I believe we're doing the windows pretty soon, maybe. But, you know, if we could just spruce up the walls and new curtains, before the parquet floor gets beyond, so we can refinish it before it gets to the point where it's beyond repair, and then maybe even the rug. But I think it'd be nice to have the chambers spruced up for people to come to visit, to watch our meetings, and just to show the importance of this room, especially after seeing the video that we had a couple weeks ago. So, thank you.
Mr. Manager?
Counselor, we already are working on new shades. Those have been in the works for some time in coordination with the new windows. We can certainly look at to have the floor, see what's involved with that. The painting has been, we recently did complete some painting in here. And July is the time when we're typically in the schools, but we'll see what we can do to sort of fix it up a little bit more, certainly.
Thank you. Council Lori?
I was just going to add, maybe when we, last year, and I know with Councilor Eddie Kennedy, we talked about the schools, and we put the bids out, and 1705 got the bids, and the high school kids, some of the high school, maybe we could do it with bidding the same way this year and allow them to do the work. And, you know, we saved a little bit of money with the schools, and I can understand what Councilor Leahy's talking about. It's just an idea, maybe we do it in that direction. Thank you.
Council Mercia?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Do we not have a department called Land and Buildings?
Yes.
Do they not do this type of work? I thought they did it in the mayor's reception room,
They do and they will.
and so they'll do it here. We don't have to send this out to bid?
No.
We don't want drapes, though, because we don't want Deval Patrick's people to come after us for drapes. But it is a good idea, and July will be good. Thank
Any
you.
further discussion? Council Leahy?
Yeah, thank you. I just did want to be clear. I just assumed, and naturally, we would have our own people do it if they're available. I just picked July because I figured that'd be the best time, so, thank you.
Any further discussion on this motion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Next motion by Council Leahy. Request the city manager have the Department of Public Works present a comprehensive street sweeping plan, including current operations utilizing small vacuum trucks. Seconded by Council Lori. Council Leahy.
Thank you. This motion, I spoke to the manager about this a few times, and my thinking was just that if we could come up with a plan and designate these street sweepers in certain areas, and then businesses would know when they're coming. So that's what I wanted to elaborate on, and these guys do a great job, but if the business owners know that, you know, Tuesday mornings or Thursday mornings, they're coming out Bridge Street, or they're going up to the Highlands to, on Westford Street, it'd give everybody a better idea of, to get things out of the way, cars out of the way or whatever, and the VACs have been a great asset to the city, and they're doing a great job, so let's utilize them to the most potential that we can.
Mr. Manager.
Thank you.
Yeah, after we bought the vacs, and they were something that I saw as a real opportunity to really expand our beautification efforts outside the downtown. We have tried to increasingly go beyond. We are on a set sort of schedule, but we'll get at that in a full report, and we'll also get the list of the street sweeping that will be done this year, the ordinary neighborhood street sweeping, the schedule that we're on for that as well.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this motion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Next motion by Council Elliott. Request the city manager provide a report on the status of trees cut down on property adjacent to the Walgreens and Rock Bridge. Seconded by Council Kennedy. Council Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Marsh, I had filed a motion a while ago, and I did get a response from Mr. Marsh, and I know there's just a lot of trees cut down there all of a sudden, and it was coincidental with the construction of the Walgreens property. I did get your message, Henry, after the last week's meeting, but I have to tell you, and I know it came from a professional engineer, but and nowhere in this response from this woman does it say that she went out there and looked and did an inspection on those trees. She said she did a review from photos. And I don't know if everybody else on my colleagues got this, but it just seems that, Walgreens wanted to get more exposure to that intersection, so they just went and cut down a bunch of trees. And I've never heard of poison ivy vine infestation. I mean, I know there is a mile-a-minute vine, but I just think it's questionable myself. And they relied on the developer who hired an arborist, it seems, to go out and determine whether they're dead or dying. I think there probably were some trees out there, but if anybody went out there, it was clear cutting as far as I'm concerned. So I'm not sure where we go from this. They're all covered in snow, but to me, it just seems like this was an answer. Oh, we looked at some photos and it looked like this. Oh, and by the way, they said that these trees, were infected, so we're taking their words on it, and all those trees are gone now. So, it's just a little disappointing that this took place. Trees can't come back, but there was well over a dozen trees that were just clear cut, and I think we have to be more vigilant when this takes place, or they should be required to put those trees back. I mean, doesn't the tree ordinance require that, Mr. Manager, or
I don't think
Madam
the tree
Solicitor?
ordinance, I don't think the tree ordinance
I mean,
applies.
this is state land, and
Well, that's it. I don't think the tree ordinance applies to state land.
so there's nothing we can do about it. Someone said, an arborist said we could cut these down. They work for Walgreens, and that's the end of it. There's 15 or 20 trees gone, and
Patty Leavenworth is actually the engineer. She's the director for the entire District 4.
right, I see that in the email.
So she wouldn't be out doing an inspection, but obviously her people have indicated they reviewed it and they've gone through with the documents that they've looked at. But it is state land, and they have jurisdiction over what takes place.
So I just put myself, when I look at these things, I'm not going to belabor the issue. I put myself, if this was a property next to me, and all of a sudden 15, maybe 20 trees were gone, I would be a little upset. And I think they're a precious resource, and we should protect them. And just to say, oh, well, by the way, some arborist that works for the developer said, there were problems, we looked at some photos, that's the end of it. I know they get a lot on their plate, but I just, I think it's a nice area, and I don't know what we can do at this point, but it just seems we have an ordinance, we should try to, enforce it to the greatest extent that we can. Thank you.
Council Leahy.
Thank you. Along with what Councilor Elliott said, I don't think as a city we should be afraid to expect that they go in and do a good job. This parcel that Councilor Elliott's talking about, along the VFW, going up the river, over by Douglas Road at the Janice rink, when the state comes in, they don't do the best cleanup, It's probably for the good that they're cutting down the dead trees and getting out some of the dead wood, but we really shouldn't be afraid to expect them to clean up and complete the job when they're done. So I think that's another point that should be taken up, and we should bring that to the state's attention, that if you're gonna come in and clean up your land, don't do the job halfway. Do a complete job for us, because we have to live here and we look at those properties all the time. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this motion? Councilor Kennedy.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, through you to the manager. Mr. Manager, regarding Councilor Elliott's motion, can't we at least send a letter to Walgreens asking them to replace the trees? I mean, maybe they'll do it, maybe they won't, but it seems to me that that would be a reasonable request if they've not cut trees down.
Yeah, I mean, they'd have to get permission from the state to put the trees onto state property, but we can certainly ask them to do, we can have the city council indicate to them the city council has asked that they do that. Sure.
Do you think that they had permission to take the trees down from the state?
Patty Leavenworth indicates that they did.
Okay.
Are you still interested in a letter to that effect?
I don't think it would hurt. Maybe they'll do it, maybe they won't, but
Sure.
it's doing something anyways, other than just throwing our hands up and saying, well, it's too bad.
Any further discussion on this motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Next motion by Councilor Elliott, request the City Council have the mayor present retiring LRWU employee Jake Davis with a citation thanking him for his 22 years of service. Seconded by Councilor Kennedy. Councilor Elliott.
Thank you. Thank you. I think we all got something on our desk today. I just filed the motion because, you know, this individual worked at the water department for 22 years. He's a veteran, disabled veteran, in the Vietnam era, and I just think after 22 years, it's something that we should do. And I see that there's a note that this was put in the mail, but it would have been nice to have him come in and present it to him personally. But I understand he already retired, so maybe in the future we could take that into consideration. I know that we do have people come down here to get citations. I guess the second thing was that Councilor Lori had filed a motion to recognize people retiring. I can't recall exactly what that was, Councilor Lori. Was that what it was?
Councilor
Yeah,
Lori.
basically, I asked that we have an event maybe once or twice a year to honor the employees of the city who have left. You know, it's my opinion anyway. If someone retires, I don't care if it's 10, 12, and I know Jake Davis. Jake was a member of the old boys club, the men's club we had. Jake's a great guy, and but I don't care if it's 10, 12, 15, 20 years. When the idea is when someone retires, they should be recognized. And I really think, and I talked to the manager about this, on your last day, if you work at City Hall, I'm sure the manager or the assistant to the city manager comes by. Everyone knows each other, but if you work for the DPW, the water department, the waste treatment plant, I think someone from the office, from the administration, if the mayor's in, if there's a counselor who could represent the city on people's final day, just to go down with a citation and thank them for their years of service. And that's whether it's 5, 6, 10, 15, it's just my thoughts, and thank you.
Yeah.
Councilor Leahy.
I was just gonna add that on the school department, every June, they have an event in the mayor's office, so if we wanted to do that, that's something we could think about.
Mr. Manager.
And that's exactly what we were planning on doing, is doing something similar to the school department, having everyone in at the end of the year to thank them.
And just as a clarification, in the past, we've generated citations just as they've been requested. So unless they're requested, we don't necessarily know that has actually retired. So maybe, Mr. Manager, you can forward those along
Absolutely.
to us, to the mayor's office. Councilor Lori.
Maybe the department heads could notify personnel, or personnel could generate a letter to the mayor's office when someone says they're going to leave the city or retire, and at that point, we could do it automatically.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further discussion on this motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. Next, we have the city manager portion of the agenda, communication. The city manager responses to city council motions and requests. Any discussion? Motion, Councilor Mercia.
Mr. Mayor, where does the part on this agenda come in where we're accepting the minutes of the last meeting? Because I don't see it on this agenda, and it's 7 o'clock. Wouldn't we go into the public hearing? I don't know, that's simply my concern. I don't know what.
Mr. Clerk.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, my portion of with the minutes, I just didn't have an opportunity to complete them all because of the length of the meetings that we had during the week and with the storm and stuff, but they'll be on next agenda.
Any further discussion, Councilor Mercy?
Yeah, but it's 7 o'clock. Don't we have
It's
any public hearing?
just before 7 o'clock. I mean, we can wait. It's now 7 o'clock. Okay, we'll move to the public hearing portion of the agenda. First up, continued from February 5th, 2013. We have an ordinance amended zoning by amending various sections for the medical marijuana treatment center. Motion to waive the full reading by Councilor Noon, seconded by Councilor Lowry. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Reading by title in City Council ordinance, an ordinance amending the code, the zoning ordinance of the City of Lowell, Massachusetts by amending various sections. Entered up for those wishing to speak in favor. In favor? Seeing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Open it up for those wishing to speak in opposition. If you please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Taya Dixon-Mullane. I'm the president of the Lower Highlands Neighborhood Group, and I'm only speaking in opposition because I think that this ordinance may be slightly premature, and that I'm asking that you refer this back to the zoning subcommittee. The changes to expand the areas available to the medical marijuana clinics is new, and just as all you received the map on Friday, so did all of us, and we really haven't been able to give the public, I think, the opportunity to really think through what this may mean to them outside those areas that were previously suggested for these areas. You know, and one of the reasons why I bring this up is that right now we don't know what DPH is going to require for location, security, siting of these facilities, how big they will be or how small they may be. And I received a notice today from a resident that there's actually listening sessions for the development of medical marijuana regulations held by the Department of Public Health. One had already taken place in Worcester, and there's another one on Thursday in Boston and another in Holyoke at the end of the month, where they will be discussing and taking comment from the public about the how they might form the ordinance or the law, the regulations implementing this. So I think that we might want to consider referring this to the zoning subcommittee, just because I think we need to really seriously consider what DPH may be doing. I think we definitely have to have an ordinance, but I'm not sure that this is the correct one. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Kennedy?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just as a point of order, I think that we already had the public hearing on this and on item 8, and that they were postponed. But the public hearing part is done, but I have received communication from at least 2 neighborhood groups asking for a 1-week postponement, and I'm sure every other city council has too. So I would just move that the matter be sent to the zoning subcommittee.
Well, yeah, just a moment. We do still have the public hearing for those wishing to speak in opposition. So once that's closed, I understand your point, but it's also listed under public hearings on the agenda. So those that showed up may wish to speak in opposition, so
Okay.
we'll see. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? In opposition? Seeing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Councilor Kennedy.
I would move that the matter be referred to the zoning subcommittee.
Motion to refer to the zoning subcommittee, seconded by Councilor Lowry. Anyone on the motion?
Yes.
Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I see the map, and it looks very thorough. The LI, the light industrial, and the HRC areas, one is in purple and one is in blue. But still, I don't know exactly where that is. It looks good, and it looks like it's outlined pretty well. The the 1,000-foot buffer zone, but I don't know where these purple areas are. So if it is postponed, that'd be good. There should be some meetings set up so that we could get the answers to this. I don't know where this is. I mean, it looks good to me, but I don't know exactly where this is. I'd like to know. That's all.
Any further discussion? Councilman Donta.
Just for background, do we have anyone that could explain to us the state law, what it's allowing for these centers within our area? And because it's not like there's somebody asking to place one of these places in Lowell yet. We're just trying to limit where they could go by having the ordinance. So if we could just have someone tell us how many centers are allowed by law and where they could be community-wise.
Bakey?
Well, at the moment, we are all still waiting for the State Department of Public Health to promulgate their regulations as required under the ordinance, the referendum that was passed and adopted. The referendum did have limits on the total number that could be allowable in the state, and it had limits on the number that could be allowable within any given county as well. So it is conceivable that there may be none that ever apply in Lowell, because they may, the Middlesex County allotment may be taken up in other communities before they come here. And until the Department of Public Health promulgates their regulations, which is supposed to be by April 1st, according to the referendum, although word I'm hearing is that they may take a little longer than that to make sure they get them right. I would also expect that our Board of Health may be interested in promulgating its own regulations once they learn what the state Department of Public Health is promulgating first, and supplementing them with specific local requirements as well. The reason this is before you this evening is because shortly after the elections in November, I don't recall which councilor it was, but a member of the council made a motion requesting that the city provide zoning for medical marijuana facilities, and that is something. Through zoning, we aren't really regulating the nature of the business. That's really what the public health regulations, again, at the state and presumably also at the Board of Health locally, will do. But what we are regulating through zoning is where they can be located in the city and on what standards we're going to apply to those location decisions. And that's really what's before you. Certainly, if the council wishes to delay this a week or delay this even further and await the actions of the Department of Public Health and see how that may inform further what choices we want to make, we're certainly happy to work with you on that basis. If you'd like to adopt it tonight, we're willing to work with you on that basis as well.
Councilman
Just to clarify, does the law actually stipulate how many are allowed in each county, or is that going to be left up to the regulation to define?
I believe it does. I don't recall off the top of my head what the number was. Does the city solicitor have a? Okay. Yeah.
Okay. 5 was the number I had in my mind, but I didn't know what the exact number was per county. So that out of all the, and was there a limit on how many could be in in any community that one was placed in? Because I'd heard that there was one also. So if anyone wanted to place one, once we had one, there could not be any more. Or I thought once there were 5 in a county, and there wasn't one in Lowell, there couldn't be one in Lowell then, unless they modified the law. All right, thank you.
Councilor Kennedy.
Yeah, my information, which comes from the Beacon, they did a little article on it shortly after the referendum passed, and it was my understanding that the requirement was 1, that there shall be 1 in every county, but there can not be any more than 5 in any county. And certainly Middlesex, because it's so huge, there's plenty of other places besides Lowell where the 5 could be taken up. But I think that every county has to have at least 1.
Any further discussion? Councilor Newman.
I would support move this to the zoning subcommittee. Let me say this, that a while back, I don't recall the exact date, voters actually November's voted to approve this medical marijuana for medical use, and as soon as that happened, I actually filed a motion to have this certain zoning for the dispenser to locate it, because we don't want them to be near the library, the school, the playground, and so on and so forth. We want to be able to tell them where they should be at. And my understanding is that going to be 35 in the state, and you bet Lowell is going to be at least one, if not 2 dispenser. That's going to happen. So, and that's prompted me to say, look, we need to tell them where they're going to go. And I appreciated Adam for put together the work with the interdepartmental group to put together a map and information for us. Last meeting we talked about a the retail place zoning for it. I don't think it's the right place for it. I think the high-rise commercial and light industrial zoning district is the place to go. And I think that the 100,000 feet from the school zone and library is the right things to go. I do agree that, waiting to hear from DPH as they promulgated the regulation is maybe the right things to do. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. But we need to prepare for it, even before the promulgation of the regulation by DPH. So, yes, as soon as this referred to the zoning subcommittee, I will talk to the zoning subcommittee members and then convene a meeting, and the public will be notified. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Lowry?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As far as zoning for one of these, and I'm only taking this information from the newspaper, they're filing lawsuits now against cities and towns who are trying to zone them out of the areas. And I think that's one thing the city has to recognize, and it's only from what I've read in the paper. You can try to squeeze them out, but you're facing a potential lawsuit also against the city. Madam Solicitor.
Madam Solicitor?
That's correct. There's a number of, it's mainly towns that right now are enacting total bans, and in all likelihood, the Attorney General's office, who is charged with reviewing all bylaws, will likely eventually weigh in and declare such bans to be unconstitutional or void from state law. But that is something an undercurrent that's going on right now.
And it's just something I've picked up in the paper over the last week or so. Thank you.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Next, we have an ordinance to amend zoning of 228 Plain Street. Motion to waive the full reading by Councilor Lowry, seconded by Councilor Leahy. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Reading by title in City Council ordinance. An ordinance amending the code of the City of Lowell, Massachusetts with respect to Chapter 290 thereof entitled Zoning by extending existing regional retail zoning district to include the entirety of 228 Plain Street in Lowell, which is presently zoned traditional two-family. I have a petition by the original petitioner, Tony Quach, of 228 Plain Street. I hereby request the petition to rezone the property at 228 Plain Street, Lowell, be withdrawn without prejudice.
Yes.
Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know that this would have came before us, and we could have voted it up or down. We're not, and I'm glad that we're not, because the petitioner wouldn't be able to come back for 2 years if we had taken action either way, especially against him. And on the face value of this, I would have not supported this at all. But coming in early to attend the subcommittee meeting previous to the council meeting, I had the occasion to sit with this gentleman. And the very first thing that I realized was this gentleman had all good intentions, but because he was Vietnamese, he wasn't familiar with the rules, with the law. The very first thing that you should do, as I told him, was whatever your plans are in your property would be a communication with the neighbors, the surrounding abutters, and let them know of your intention, because if people are skeptical about what you're doing and they're assuming this, that, and the other, they don't want any part of that. So I think that's what happened here, was a lack of communication, so it's good that he withdrew it. For those listening that were against this, it was about a person that had property on a particular street, Montreal Street, and he has a garage that's ready to collapse. And if it does, he wants to rebuild it, but he wants to build it a little bit bigger. If he rebuilds it, he would have to build it 15 feet from the property line, which he could do that, but he would have to rezone it, because then it would be a different zone. He doesn't want to put a business in there like the neighbors or the VFW or people are speculating. With this lack of communication, he just wants to build a bigger garage. This gentleman is a businessman. He owns a business in the Target area, in the Target Mall area, and he's been in business there for 10 years. He's a reputable person. He figures that if he built this garage a little bit bigger, he could store some of his things, which he deals with nail supplies, and God knows, being a woman, I take part in that myself. But the fact remains that people misunderstood and thought he was going to put his business in his home and behind his house. That actually is not true. So I'm glad that we're withdrawing this. I think his next step would be to communicate better. And I know it's hard when you're trying to, do the right thing and you don't know where to turn. Probably he needs guidance, but he needs to communicate with the people. I think that's a miscommunication, so it's all good that we're just taking his withdrawal. Thank you.
Motion by Councilor Mercia to allow the withdrawal without
Yes.
prejudice. Seconded by Councilor Noon. Councilor Noon.
If we were to vote on this last week, I know that we're going to vote denying this, and, but for Councilor Martin, who, say, look, give him, an opportunity to be here, and he was not here the last meeting because he didn't know that he had to be here, and if he were, he would have. If it was, he would have, request that the petition be withdrawn. So I'm glad that he's here tonight, and I'm glad for Councilor Martin, wisdom, very wise wisdom to say, look, give the guy, let the guy be here and let him be heard. So thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Returning to the city manager's portion of the agenda, we have communication from city manager, responses to city council motions and requests. Any discussion? Councilor Laurie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to thank the administration for the report on the 2 elections and the possible cost. I guess it's about $140,000 for the 2. And unfortunately, the past couple of years, and it's just racking some of the cities and towns to come up with this money. Luckily, we had an overflow of money last year. We put in the accounts, and we're in good shape. But it was good to see the report come in. And the other part of that report was potential changes in the voting areas, I know, with the schools and things like that. And I just wanted to say thank you, and I thought the report was well done by the law department, and I want to give the city solicitor a job well done on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Noon.
Along those lines, it's just a question on the training. How does that go? And do we have enough time to, give them training and prepare them for this upcoming primary U.S. Senate race?
For the poll workers, the changes that are taking place in the for the poll workers is that first of all poll workers will now be provided with a manual, and they'll be able to use the manual during the course of the training class. They'll be able to take notes in it, and most importantly, they'll be able to take it with them and also have it available with them on Election Day. Aside from that, we are planning on having the Secretary of State's office come in and utilize them for additional training, as well as LHS, who provides services to the city with respect to our ballot machines. And a representative of LHS has agreed to be with us for all of our upcoming elections, but also, in addition to that, to provide training to all of our poll workers. So in the event that there is a malfunction on Election Day, which we can be pretty much guaranteed that there'll be several of them, some of those malfunctions are of a nature that there's a quick fix, and those are the types of things that we'll be going over during the course of the training. We're also going to open the training up to election staff, and also try to work with the police department and see if some of the police officers who typically work the polls could take some time to go to the training. But that's sort of an ongoing process.
Well, I'm very glad that, particularly with the machine, the ballot machine. In the past, I know that only one person know how to take care of the machine in the events that there's a problem. And now that we have the LHS technicians coming, not only just they coming down during the elections, but also prior to that, they train poll worker and or maybe officers that's going to be at the polling station. Certainly, really a quick response, a quick fix to any problem that may arrive. So I'm pleased to see that this process, this training is being scheduled and hope to complete by the primary. And surely the problem of the past will be the past. Thank you.
That's the intent.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councilor Kennedy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, this isn't really on the agenda, but I would like to commend the administration and the city on the job they did over the weekend regarding the snowstorm. This was an extraordinary snowstorm with a very high volume of snow, and I think compared to a lot of other cities and communities that we did very well over the weekend. This is an older city, and some of our neighborhoods are older and have narrow streets, and I'm not saying that every street is done perfectly at this point, but certainly I think we fared much better than a lot of communities. If one of the measures is how soon you get the schools reopened, we did very well. I think there are communities that still have their schools closed even now. So it's a job well done, and so I think it should be pointed out.
Thank you. Councilor Mercia?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too want to say that as well. That's a very, very good thing. And through you to the Mr. Manager, you did an excellent job keeping us informed via text of every development taking place. So you did a tremendous job. I also want to thank the municipal and state emergency personnel, public works, independent snow plowers, dispatchers, ambulance workers, hospital workers, police and fire, and everybody that had a hand in this humongous task ahead of us. I know my muscles are still yelling help because they're killing me, but that's okay. But I'm telling you, it was a big task ahead of us, and everybody pulled their weight, did a tremendous job. Thank you.
Councilor Noon?
I'm sure you probably don't get enough praise for the good work have you done, and I too want to touch on the text. It's very constant. I got more texts during the snow time than I did the whole year last year, which is amazing. So anyway, that said, everyone give with the department, ranging from the Mr. Snow down, of course, you and Mr. Snowdown have done a remarkable job. I think we can do much, much better as well. Looking at, in terms of particularly the side street. I noticed that because only one plow can go in, right? So the car park on both sides because the main street is parking banned. So what happening is that they park on the side street. When the plow guy go in there, all the snow going on top of the car. Guess what happened after they done plowing? When all those people need to duck their car out of there, they duck the snow back to the street. So I think we ought to look at better way to maybe working with institutions, neighborhood, big business, and or school to have information to this individual and say, look, parking ban also on the small street, and you guys can go park in the school parking lot and or this big bank here, the bank or the neighborhood places that have big parking, and or the city parking lot, and maybe utilize the bus, take them back to their home from the parking garage that we have. That way, it make it easier for the people who plow the side street, the small street, to plow quicker and then plow better than what they've done so far. So anyhow, thank you.
Councilor Laurie?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Along these ideas and terms, I was wondering if there wasn't something we could do, some warning for the individuals who took part in this. If they work out of DPW or what departments, maybe coffee, muffins, or breakfast. A lot of these people worked, I don't know how many hours throughout that weekend. They were away from their families. While we're shoveling snow Saturday morning at our homes, they're not, because they're still working. They've worked around the clocks to get the schools open. Their dispatches were being called in, the police department. If there's something we could do to recognize them with coffee, you know, some type of thing like that. Thank you.
Mr. Manager.
Well, thank you all for the very kind words, and I agree with you completely that the DPW guys, the emergency personnel, did an outstanding job, and we are looking at further improvements. I think the way we attacked some of the small streets was a little bit unique this year and very effective with smaller pieces of equipment that in the past was not done. But we are looking at if we have a storm of this magnitude or something close to it, and maybe even down from that, but we are looking at ways to get cars off the street. That has really been our problem. It's been the problem in the city for a long, long time, but we're exploring some possibilities of actually coordinating with neighborhoods to get their cars off the streets into the garages. We made 2 garages open for this storm, and many people took advantage of it, but certainly there were areas that we could increase, and if we have to provide some form of transportation, we're exploring that as a means to do that. I also want to thank the council, because one of the reasons that the snow operations worked so well was the new equipment that was purchased a couple of years ago. I know that some of you weren't here at the time, but that investment has really paid off. The report I got from the staff down there was they were thrilled to be able to be out plowing as opposed to having their trucks in the garage having work done to them, because they were new pieces of equipment or newer pieces of equipment that didn't need or didn't have the problem of breaking down. Also, we bought some new pieces of equipment, small pieces, the trackless snow blowers that we're able to go into those small streets and deal with it, as well as a larger one that we're using in the downtown area. So it was that investment that really paid off for us. So I want to thank the City Council for their support of that.
Council Leahy.
Thank you. I just wanted to add quickly that the communication piece was great. Everybody did a great job, but the transformation from the downtown area from Monday to Tuesday was unbelievable. I mean, that equipment really showed you how much snow they could remove, and I know it was a little tough for some of the businesses, but when I went through downtown today, I mean, they got a lot of snow out of there.
Yep.
So, and they put in a lot of hours, and I'm sure Henry will put in as many hours starting tomorrow with the punch list, so we'll say a little prayer for Henry, but thank you very much.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Entertain a motion to accept communications and place on file. So moved by Council Laurie, seconded by Council Leahy. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Next, we have communication to reappoint Kerry Hall to the Board of Health.
So moved.
So moved by Council Mercia, seconded by Council Laurie. Roll call, please.
Council Norm.
Yes.
Council Elliott.
Yes.
Council Kennedy.
Yes.
Council Leahy.
Yes.
Council Laurie.
Yes.
Council Martin.
Yes.
Council Madonza.
Yes.
Council Mercia.
Yes.
Mayor Murphy.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Next, we have an order of 60-day trial. Motion to waive the full reading by Councilman Johnson, seconded by Councilor Noon. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Reading by title in City Council order pursuant to Chapter 266 of the Code of Ordinances, City of Lowell, Massachusetts, concerning Section 266, thereof entitled Temporary Experimental Regulations. Temporary traffic regulations are hereby implemented for a period of 60 days. What's the wish of the council? Move for approval by Councilman Johnson, seconded by Councilor Mercia. Roll call, please.
Council Noon.
Yes.
Council Elliott.
Yes.
Council Kennedy.
Yes.
Council Leahy.
Yes.
Council Laurie.
Yes.
Council Martin.
Yes.
Council Madonza.
Yes.
Council Mercia.
Yes.
Mayor Murphy.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Next, we have a communication to reappoint Ryan P. Gilday, Esquire, to the Pollard Memorial Library Board of Trustees.
Move approval.
Move for approval by Council Kennedy, seconded by Council Laurie. Roll call, please.
Council Noon.
Yes.
Council Elliott.
Yes.
Council Kennedy.
Yes.
Council Leahy.
Yes.
Council Laurie.
Yes.
Council Martin.
Yes.
Council Madonza.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
Mayor Murphy.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Next, we have a loan order for the capital improvement bonds to borrow $2 million for the purpose of financing the purchase and installation of parking kiosks. Motion to waive the full reading by Council Laurie, seconded by Council Kennedy. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Reading by title. In City Council loan order to borrow $2 million for the purpose of financing the purchase and installation of parking kiosks. I'd entertain a motion to refer to a public hearing on February 26, 2013 at 7 p.m. So moved by Council Kennedy, seconded by Council Mercia. On the motion,
Yes, on the motion.
Council Mercia.
Thank you. Through you to the manager. Mr. Manager, how many kiosks are we talking about? This is an awful lot of money, $2 million.
Right, yeah, I don't have an exact number on that, Counselor.
Are we
I was just
replacing
looking
them
to see if I
all?
had that. No, we're not actually replacing, we're increasing the number of kiosks. We're having an issue, there's a couple of things we're trying to do here. We're replacing some of the older kiosks that have a communication issue that, where they are not transmitting information back. There's some of these, it's not a lot, but there's some that transmit information late back to, it's about a 15-minute gap between when people put the money in and when it gets back to the handheld devices. So we're having a problem with some of those units. Those are the older ones that have lasted 5 years, and there's a market still out there for those. But the bigger issue that we're having is that around the Wanalancet Mill area, along Father Morissette, and Suffolk Street, John Street, those side streets over there, we see the opportunity to do a better job of managing parking in those areas. We have a number of people utilizing those and taking up spaces that the commercial users of that building need. We have students parking over there. We've had some complaints about that. Actually, Councilor Laurie has brought that to my attention. We also see the opportunity to provide parking for events at the Songus and at the Lasher, where people are parking in other spaces now. We think that they could be utilizing on-street parking and paying a premium for that and again, a better control of parking, because those spaces are just taken up now for free, whereas we could manage those more effectively with kiosks. The Father Morissette is the additional parking they would provide, but beyond that, it's also an implementation of the Jeff Speck, or the Downtown Evolution Plan that was unveiled a couple of years ago to turn Father Morissette more into a city street as opposed to a highway. So this would allow us to provide parking on Father Morissette to improve its overall utilization as well.
Thank you.
Council Laurie, and then Council Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When we do put these kiosks in, and I know we have talked about it in the past, I talked to Steve McCarthy, who heads the M2D2 incubator program at the university, and outside that area, if we could keep it down to 4 or 2 hours. You know, I was talking to Steve at the hockey games one night, and there's people actually going in there with millions of dollars to invest in these small firms with the incubator companies, and those are future jobs. And I know Adam Bakey and Teresa Parks works very closely with M2D2 to try to keep the jobs in the city here. And, you know, it's a win for everyone. We could get the jobs, or at least the companies in this area, and the university gets to keep its alumni in the area. But, yeah, if we could keep a couple of those down to 2 or 4 hours, Steve said there's a good turnover when these people come in to invest. And the other thing down the line, and I'll probably put a motion in down the line, is if we're going to put kiosks down around that area, maybe some type of a sticker program for the residents in the condos. I don't know, I know on game nights we'll probably be using the kiosk, and outside of that, probably not. But what I'm afraid of is they might have to pay for parking 2, 3 in the morning. I don't know how that will work.
Oh,
And
no, right.
There's going to be several dorms down there.
Right.
Mr. Manager.
And the students are coming in.
Right, the parking, we would have to, we'll be working with the council on this, but we wouldn't have overnight parking at these, people could park for free
If it'd
overnight.
be for game nights, the
Right, and
kiosk.
most of the people in the condos down there have, I know parking is an issue there, but they also have that garage that
Right.
the developers have built down
And,
there.
you know, it's my understanding these kiosks could be programmed specifically for game nights.
Correct.
So when there's no games, the parking would basically stay the way it is now.
Correct.
Thank you.
Councilor Kennedy?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just briefly, I mean, this has to go to public hearing, and I'm sure there'll be a full discussion afterwards, but I think that it would be helpful in anticipation of the public hearing if you could provide the council with maybe a comprehensive summary and a rationale for why this makes sense to spend $2 million, as Councilor Mercy had pointed out, for these.
And if I may, and we will certainly do that at the public hearing, but again, it's, the purpose is generally to just better manage parking. That's the whole purpose of meters. And the payback on these is about 2.5 years. So they pay back quickly, but then the revenue that's generated from these will go a long way towards keeping our parking enterprise very healthy, particularly as we start to look at improvements that are needed on the older garages, like the Roy garage, which is now approaching 30-some-odd years old and needs some work done on it, and some of the other garages. Yes. Yep. Absolutely. No, we intend to do that at the public hearing.
Councilor Elliott?
You touched on something I was going to ask Mr. Manager, the parking enterprise. I know at some point in time there was discussion about rates because the enterprise was not going to be solvent in a number of years. Where are we with that?
Council, that's a good point. That was something that was talked about probably, I think, 2 or 3 years ago.
Right.
That it was having some issues, and we were looking at the possibility of rates having to be adjusted. But at this point, and Mr. Moses isn't here with us tonight, but that parking enterprise is very healthy. And in fact, it's running a surplus right now. So we don't foresee any increase in rates there at any time in the near future. And this type of expansion of the enterprise, not just for the purpose of making money, but for the purpose of better managing parking. But the added benefit is it does bring in revenue that will keep that healthy, and thereby able to keep us able to maintain rates at their current levels.
Did you say when initial questions, I think by Councilor Marcia, that some of these kiosks are failing?
They're not failing. There's an issue with the communication devices on them that it could be as much as a 15-minute, as it's been explained to me, a tie-in. And we're looking to see if there's some fixes we can make. But the modems within the units can only reset at 15 minutes. So if someone puts money in a meter, and we've run into this with a few people now, where they put money in the meter and, at 11 o'clock for, an hour, and at 11:10, the meter personnel go by, and their device tells them that there's no money in that meter because it hasn't registered back yet to the modem. The modem hasn't registered back to say there's money in that meter. So it's obviously confusing for people that went in, spent $2 to get or $1 to spend to get the hour's worth of time, and then they find out that they get a ticket. They appeal it. We check the records and say yes, there was money put in that meter, but unfortunately the attendant handheld device doesn't register on that.
So what?
So we're looking at
we're
fixes.
replacing those?
We're looking at fixes on those.
Is there warranty? I mean, that would seem like, that was the basis for the purchase to make sure there's, people are not feeding the meter and that it's timely and,
Right, well,
So,
it's certainly one of the features. So we're working on that issue right now. It's been something that's been ongoing, and Mr. Troop is working on that right now with the vendors, and we're hoping that there's a quick solution to this. But the warranties those expired 4 years ago on those.
So what, they're good for a year? Is that what
I
we're
think it's a
saying?
year-long warranty.
So these new ones, these new ones, are they theft-proof?
Well, they're the same in terms of, they have the same safeguards as the other ones, and have the same ability to generate reports that we can use for accounting purposes. Yes.
Okay.
Far better than the old meters that you could just empty the coins, and there's no way to track those.
Well, okay, considering the nature of the problems that we've had, I think it was important to ask the question that, so it's still, they're still the same kiosks, they're still gonna need one key to open one section and another key, and we have a plan in place to make sure
Same. Right.
people, I mean, there was a problem with the keys. I mean, has that all been worked out before we go
yeah.
forward and buy, how many more are we buying? You
Again,
didn't
I
know?
don't have the exact number in front of me. I don't have that.
How much do they cost per
I think
unit?
they're about 5,000 a unit, so if we did the quick math, we could probably figure that out.
Okay, thank you.
Council Martin.
Thank you. In the information that we get in advance of the public hearing, I think one thing I'd like to know is where we're going to put these where there's not metering now. I mean, I can see, the kiosks replace meters and things, but we're going into some new locations. And I think, last week, I think the drawing certainly helped with the Butler School. I think the drawing was very helpful with the medical marijuana. And we may not need a drawing for this, but at least a list of the new locations.
We will have a map.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Councilman Donza.
You mentioned Father Morissette Boulevard, and is this loan order just for the kiosks, or is it also going to be for the work along Father Morissette to restripe it to the single lane and bike lane and parking sections?
Yeah, it will include the painting to do the delineation of the spaces, but it won't be all of the other work. And that's really minor costs anyway. It's primarily the meters that are the cost.
Just, this might be a technicality, but the first line of the main paragraph in the loan order, I thought it would mirror the title, but it says financing the purchase and installation of parking. And it has semicolon. I'm just wondering if there should be kiosks in there as it has in the title. So that could be put in there for the vote.
I believe this was done by bond counsel, but we can check on that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Next, we have reports, subcommittee reports for the Public Safety Subcommittee, February 12, 2013. Councilor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Subcommittee on Public Safety met earlier this evening. The members, myself, Councilor Elliott, Councilor Noon, and we discussed the new rental inspection ordinance and certain definitions within that ordinance and exemptions, things, and enforcement. So I guess the short story is, under the Division of Development Services is starting to enforce the ordinance that the council adopted last year. Notices have gone out. I know we've all received calls or questions about, is my property exempt? Do I have to pay this $50 fee? And so there was a generally a good discussion about what the methods are going to be to start enforcing this ordinance, what steps are being taken to initiate inspections, follow-up inspections, and the like, as well as a discussion about, whether certain units should remain exempt. I think neighborhood groups are rightly concerned that just because something is owner-occupied doesn't mean it's not necessarily a problem, although I think on the other hand, we've gotten calls from people that, geez, I have a two-family, I've lived there 50 years, my daughter lives upstairs, she doesn't pay any rent. Is that something we really need to inspect and generate a fee on. So there's a balance to be struck there, but we did have a good discussion of all those issues. This matter is also pending before the Housing Subcommittee, so we're going to have opportunity to discuss it further. I know, Mr. Mayor, you were at the meeting, as was Councilor Mendonça, Councilor Mercier, Councilor Leahy, Councilor Laurie. Everybody sort of weighed in with questions. So there were no conclusions reached other than to get for people to get the sense that enforcement of this ordinance is underway. It's going to take some time, I think, to see what the history is and what the experience is with compliance, non-compliance, but I think Development Services has a plan to do that. We'll continue to monitor that, and we're going to take up the issue of fees and exemptions at a future meeting of the Housing Subcommittee.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this report? Entertain a motion to accept as report of progress. So moved by Councilor Laurie, seconded by Councilor Mendonça. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Councilor Mendonça?
Yes, I'd just like to let the members of the Finance Subcommittee know and others that I've scheduled a Finance Subcommittee meeting for this coming Tuesday to begin the review of the personnel ordinance that controls how non-union personnel are treated as far as salaries and the like. So that's for next Tuesday at 5:30.
Thank you. Any other subcommittee announcements?
Yeah, I won't be able to make that subcommittee meeting, so and there's 2 other members, but I just wanted to let the chairman know. Thank you.
Next, we have the wire inspector, National Grid, request for underground electric conduit at 297 Market Street. I'd entertain a motion to accept and adopt the accompanying order. So moved by Councilor Laurie, seconded by Councilor Martin. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. We have motions. Councilor Laurie, request the city manager, request the proper department, explore another location for the human dog sled racing event at Winterfest. Seconded by Councilor Leahy. Councilor Laurie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This comes, we had a problem with the Winterfest this year. We had to cancel it, and I was talking to some of the...
Or postpone it.
What's that?
Postpone it.
Postpone.
Sure.
Talking to some of the businesses over at 75 Arcan Drive, they shut down for that weekend, and a lot of doctors, dentists, they put they don't have any appointments. Now, we cancel it, and we were going to have it in 2 weeks. They've already scheduled their appointments, and it's really a hardship for them year after year. And the reason for this motion is we're going to possibly move it a little bit this year to allow them to open. Maybe that's something we could do in the future, take 75 Arcan into consideration and, just move the event a little bit to allow them to take traffic in and serve their patients. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Mercier.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I made a motion in November for this very purpose, to ask in advance when the meetings are held with the Winterfest committee, if we would keep into consideration the businesses there, and I'm sure that you must have done that. We never realized that there'd be a snowstorm such as the magnitude that there was. We never knew that someone would make a motion to get a snowmaking machine, which we probably don't need it now, but be that as it may, we didn't know. So these are the things that are we notifying the businesses again to tell them about the postponement for 2 weeks?
Mr. Manager.
They have been notified. We've also been working with them when we have moved it up the street, and we've had to shorten the track some, but I don't think that's problematic. I think we can
shorten the track. Remember that. You better beat the school committee.
I know there's about 6 councilors here who are going to be pulling that sled, who are very grateful.
That's right.
We're going to shorten that distance.
Any further discussion on this motion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Next, we have motion by Councilor Leahy. Request the city manager send a letter on behalf of the city council inviting the Lowell plan to work with the council and school committee regarding improvements to the science labs at Lowell High School. Second by Councilor Laurie. Councilor Leahy.
Thank you, through you, the manager. Just when I was on the school committee a few years ago, we were trying to work with the Lowell plan to develop some improvements at the high school, and for whatever reason, it kind of got left at the wayside. So this would just be an invitation to send to them, or a letter on, if it passes, on behalf of the whole council, just to say, you know, let's get the plans going, work with the school committee and the school department to improve the high school. And I believe that the Lowell plan may have sent some information over that may have already gotten distributed to us or not, but they have sent over the older reports for us to take a look at. Thank you.
Any further discussion on this motion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Next motion by Council Leahy. Request the city manager extend an invitation to the Lowell Plan to attend an economic development subcommittee to explore a strategy in conjunction with UMass Lowell to recruit research facilities to locate the businesses here in the city. Seconded by Council Lori. Councilor Leahy.
Thank you. I put this on, I'm not sure if it would go to economic development subcommittee or not, but I just thought that with everything that's going on at the university, all the research and the expansion, there's got to be a way to try to draw some of those companies to move to the area. We must have, if we don't, the Lowell plan must have maps or land banks of, you know, what's available in the city. I'm sure we've got some mill buildings that still need to be renovated. Maybe that could be a possibility, but just anything we can do to work together with the university, the city, to draw businesses into the area. And obviously it's going to have, promote the economic growth. It's going to benefit the city, the residents, university, and the state, and, you know, jobs, bringing back personal and business tax money to the state, to the city. And then the other thing that came up this year was, I mean, maybe in the long run, it could help bring down the commercial tax rate if enough businesses came this way. Thank you.
Mr. Manager.
I think this has been a topic that we've discussed with the collegiate partnership subcommittee that we've had in the past, and we do the university and our economic development department work very closely together on you know, trying to identify when a business is looking to spin off from the university. There's communication, regular communication with Teresa Park, and we try to match them up with space that they need, and that's a good relationship, and one that we actually had a meeting just yesterday with the university to talk about some other possibilities along those lines, and we're formalizing that even more. So it's something we do now. We also are working right now with the Lowell plan on a combination, obviously, with the city involved because of our economic development activities, but also the university and the community college and some of the business leaders on some opportunities that we see out there to reach out beyond the city to bring some new businesses in. So there's always a lot going on, and there continues to be a lot going on right now along these lines. And it may be something that we'll be able to do more of a formal report on in the near future, either to the Economic Development Subcommittee or the Collegiate Partnership Subcommittee, or a combination of those, because I do think that there's the relationship between the university and the city is very strong, and one that I think is paying dividends. We had a very good opening today, and I know that Councilor Laurie probably wants to talk a little bit about that, but the new robotics center out on the boulevard that the university just opened is an opportunity that we've been working with them on, and we see some real possibilities there.
Councilor Laurie.
As the manager said, that was a great opening today, and I know the mayor was there and the city manager, and I saw Mr. Bakey there and Teresa Parkin. Of course, they're working with the crowd and the investors coming in. One of the robots I saw was really quite interesting. They had a futuristic city manager robot. Balances budget, does planning. All you have to do is plug it in, doesn't make any money. And I asked Marty where the new chancellor's robot was. They haven't come up with that yet. But they do have a city manager's robot for anyone who's interested in going and checking that out.
Any further discussion on this motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Next motion by Council Kennedy. Request the city manager work with the superintendent of schools and school department to develop a pilot program for the summer of 2013 aimed at hiring Lowell youth to perform maintenance jobs in school buildings. Seconded by Council Leahy. Council Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This came up at the joint subcommittee that was held last week, and it's also an issue that I raised last spring, but it was late last spring. So anyways, it's February now, and there's plenty of time to plan for this. But the motion basically asked for the city manager to work with the superintendent of schools and the Lowell School Department and try to develop a pilot program that would allow for maybe 10 or 12 young people to have summer jobs this summer working in the schools. One of the issues that came up during the joint subcommittee was that there is still a list of over 800 jobs that need to be done in the various schools across the city. And of that 800, there certainly are a lot of them that have been on the list for an extended period of time and that aren't really high priority jobs. They're more or less unskilled jobs that never seem to get done just because they aren't prioritized. So the idea that I had, and I think what this would aim at, would be attacking those jobs that are unskilled jobs that could be done by but through summer employment, and maybe knock off 150 or 200 off of that list over the course of the summer without too much trouble. And I think that would go a long way as far as the schools go. Some, for instance, painting, replacing window locks and things like that are just little jobs that that don't require a high amount of, well, painting requires a high amount of skill.
Thank you.
But there are some jobs that there are some jobs that don't, and so maybe those could be on the list. Thank you.
Thank you. Council Laurie.
This is a good motion by Councilor Kennedy, and I know last year with the Facilities Subcommittee, I know Councilor Kennedy was pushing for the same program for some of the children to get hired. Lowell, they might be able to get some training, and I don't know if any of the other councilors received any feedback. We hired a lot of kids for the summer programs, but also for working in the schools, and it was well received by the parents, and they did really appreciate the hiring that was done, and I just want to commend, this is Councilor Kennedy's second year really pushing for the kids this year, and it's a great motion. Thank you.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Council Leahy.
Thank you. Yeah, there are a lot of jobs that we could hire for summer help around the city and around the schools, so it's a good motion. Get started on it early would be the best thing to do, so I'm glad that it came up. I just get a little insulted when he keeps saying that the painting isn't a skilled labor, but that's all right.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Next motion by Council Noon. Request the city manager, when working with nonprofit organizations and any company, business receiving a tax break from the city of Lowell, to ask them to give Lowell-based businesses the opportunity to bid any work, services, or supplies. Seconded by Council Mercia. Council Noon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to ask the managers to, work with the nonprofit and/or company, who receive tax break from the city to, give back to the city by, offer, the local business, that be painter like Councilor Leahy and/or plumber and so on and so forth, the bet to have work done on their business and or nonprofit organization, because in turn it provide back to the city and tax bases and so on and so forth. So, and that's what I thought. We give break to nonprofit and company. So in return, we should ask them to do us a favor in helping small businesses or painter, plumber, and so on. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this motion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Next motion by Councilor Noon, request the city manager work with the HR department to develop a policy regarding hiring and promotion to help give Lowellians greater access to jobs. Seconded by Councilor Mercia. Councilor Noon.
I know that a while back, when Councilor Dakota was here, she brought this motion forth, similar motion brought forth, and asking that we have policy, in promoting, Lowellian, hiring them and or promote them for higher positions. And, I understand that, of course, you want qualified and capable, worker for the city, candidate qualifications and being equal. Those who candidate who not living in the city and those who live in the city, and that we should give preference to the candidate that live in the city because they invest in the city, they pay tax to the city, and they go into the city store, barber shop, and salon, and so on and so forth. So we ought to look to help them and to help us. So that's what I thought that, we need to think about that. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this motion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. Next motion by Councilor Noon, request the city manager, request the superintendent of police to develop a public service tutorial on the city's website or public television regarding how to protect your personal property from theft. So, seconded by Councilor Mercia. Councilor Noon.
I think similar to last week when we talked about educating the community citizens, taxpayer of Lowell, through LTC and or website to how to do things, and this is one of the other things, that how to protect yourself from or your property from being stolen and so on and so forth. So I'm sure the superintendent of police, Superintendent Lowell, probably already working on something like this already, so we need to working on this in conjunction with other department, know how to, so that our citizen know how to and what to do if they have question on things. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Leahy.
Quickly, this could, there was a motion maybe a week or two ago that, with the permits, so this would be a good follow-up, if it could go on the city website, what do you need a permit for, and then this one here, how to protect your personal property, so. It's a
It
good
was
motion.
last week, Councilor Leahy.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, so voted. This motion by Councilor Noon, requests the mayor send a letter on behalf of the city council to Congresswoman Nikki Songus expressing concern relative to the adverse impact of the postal service elimination of Saturday mail in the Lowell community. Seconded by Councilor Laurie. Councilor Noon.
I know that the Postmaster General have gone to Congress to ask them officially for permission to do away with Saturday, mail delivery, and I'm sure it's not going to go anywhere. No, I'm not sure, but it may not go anywhere. My concern is that what's going to happen to businesses who use the postal service to reach their customer, and those elderly who, are waiting for their, medication and so on and so forth. So it's going to have some impact on, people and businesses. And I know that on this issue, Councilor Laurie has, a command of knowledge in this area, so he's probably want to touch on that as well. So that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Any further discussion, Councilor Laurie?
I'll just touch on a little bit. I used to, when I represented the Carriers Union out of Washington with the 5th District, it's one of the things we dealt with all the time. I was a little surprised that the Postmaster General made the announcement. I didn't think he had the authority to make that. It's already in the budget till at least September 30th or 31st. It's in a presidential budget. I could be wrong, maybe he has that authority. I thought it would have to be the president or Congress. But be that as it may, I support this. There's a lot of issues, the small businesses, lawyers, doctors who receive checks. One of the key things today is pharmaceutical prescriptions going through the mail. Just about everyone goes through mail order pharmacy, and that's a big issue for the carriers. So, I support the motion. It's something we could ask the Congresswoman to look at and see what happens down the line with Congress. Thank you.
Councilman Mendonça?
I'll probably be on the opposite side of that, but my feeling is that we probably shouldn't meddle in federal affairs. The Postal Service has got a $15 billion deficit that they have to deal with. So I'm not sure how they're going to do it. They're either going to have to raise postage considerably or try to do this. I understand that it was in the budget that they couldn't. Unfortunately, that budget never passed. The federal government's been operating without a budget for several years. So my understanding is that's how they're doing it because it's not in law, and then they're asking Congress not to put it into law. But at the same time, I mean, we had Saturday operations in the city for a while and discontinued them because it was costly to us, and maybe it wasn't being utilized as much as councils thought at the time. I wasn't on the council at the time, and I wouldn't want the congressman's office or congresswoman's office sending communication to us asking us to restart Saturday service because constituents needed it. If we felt that they needed it, we could probably handle that. And any constituents that have an issue with the Postal Service certainly have direct access to the Congresswoman's office directly. I don't think we need to speak for them per se. So unfortunately, I understand the intent of the motion, but I'll be opposed to it.
Any further discussion? Would you like a roll call? Yes. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed?
Nay.
So voted. Next motion, we have Councilor Noon. Request the mayor, on behalf of the City Council and City of Lowell, send letter of condolence to the family of Michael Dubois. Second by Councilor Mercia. Councilor Noon.
Thank you, Mayor. You thought that last week a moment of silence to Mr. Dubois' family is enough. I thought, you know what? It's not enough. We should do a little more or unusual thing. In this case, there's so many outpour of support of feeling of loss, of the passing of Mr. Dubois. So I thought that maybe a letter from you, Mayor, on behalf of the council, express our condolence would be nice. So that's why I filed the motion.
Sure. Any further discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed? So voted. Next motion is by myself. If Councilman Mendonça would take the chair.
Next motion by Mayor Murphy. Request city manager include in legislative agenda support for governor's local aid formula proposal to incentivize strong fiscal and performance management. Second by Councilor Leahy. Mayor Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a proposal that was included in the governor's budget, which separated actually an amount equal to 25% of the local aid to be put into a pot, essentially to reward local communities for doing the right thing, for following sound fiscal policies, for taking a number of steps like we have done here in the city to realize savings and improve upon the efficiency of our operations. And so this is to, the idea, of course, behind it that by encouraging these kinds of initiatives within the local cities and towns, you'd be able to maximize the impact of state spending and the impact that it has in the community. So I think it's important not just for the city in this coming fiscal year, based upon what we've already done. I think we would definitely benefit from this proposal, but for future years, because it makes very clear the choice that we have. There's an actual financial incentive to continue down this path, and so I think it's something that is important enough, really, for the city council to weigh in on it and to make sure that our own legislative delegation understands the importance of it. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Councilor Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think this is a good motion. This is a motion that Massachusetts, or that the governor is proposing in Massachusetts for this year, but there's other states that have already done this, and that have had it for a year or two. I think New York is one, and Michigan, I believe, is another one. My understanding of the governor's budget is that this would be for initiatives going forward, so that there would be initiatives in FY14, and the money would be available in FY15. So it would not be, they don't reward anybody for, or this initiative, if it's passed by the state legislature, wouldn't reward anybody for past good deeds. It's just going forward into the next couple of fiscal years.
That's correct, yeah.
Anyone else? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion's carried. Last motion on the agenda, joint motion by Mayor Murphy and Councilor Noon. Request city manager add bigger swings to the set at Armory Park. Mayor Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This was brought to me by a 7 or 8 year old constituent who, had expressed some desire last year to one of our colleagues that they wanted to have one of the swings changed at the Armory Park. They're all baby type swings, and she would like to see a bigger girl swing. So it's a very simple motion, and I don't think requires that much in the way of an appropriation. Maybe we have some swings elsewhere we can switch out, but this is just to follow through on that request. Thank you.
Councilor Noon, do you wish to be heard?
I'm all set. Thank you,
All
sir.
set. Anyone else? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion's carried.
Move to
Motion
adjourn.
to adjourn by Councilor Laurie. Second by Councilor Martin.
All right, forget it.
Okay. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed, say nay. We're adjourned. Thank you.